Welcome to the FlipSide. Tonight we are very pleased to have with us former Washington County School Superintendent Dr. Elizabeth Morgan. Dr. Morgan, welcome. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
So the first big question is, you've been out of Washington County for a while, but I know you've not been retired. You're doing a lot. And tell us a little bit about what you've been doing.
Well, partially I've done a lot of things that I put off for 40 years. I'm finally getting to them and rekindling friendships and things like that on the personal side. Professionally, I've been very fortunate. Opportunities have come my way, and I'm just very blessed to have those. One of them has been continuing my role on the commission, the Public Broadcasting Commission. I'm the vice chair of the commission, which commonly known for your viewers out there as Maryland Public Television. I really am a believer in public television, and the programs that we put on are first rate, really tremendous quality, and that takes up a lot of my time. There are a lot of activities. And then a little more than a year ago, Governor Hogan appointed me to the Maryland Public School Labor Relations Board. It's a very interesting assignment. It's a 5-member board that I guess really decides union disputes within the districts. It's the only body in the state of Maryland that can declare a labor impasse for schools, that is, not for anything else. And I've learned a lot because I really didn't know a lot about that area. I think I was appointed because of my experience in education and my background. But that's really been a wonderful assignment. And I'm traveling here and there. Nothing really major, but I'm spending the winters in warmer weather. I'm finally able to do that.
Yeah, that is my goal at some point. I don't
Yeah,
know when.
it's wonderful.
Ron, I can't believe you're not doing that at this point.
I spent my life here. Why would I want to move to warmer weather now? I mean, now's the time to enjoy the fruits of the labor and see the things that you've done in your own community and watch many programs come to fruition. Dr. Morgan, over the years, I think you were here 10 years in Washington County.
I was.
So you were here a decade. But when you left to go with one of the most distinguished generals in the history of this country, Colin Powell. How did you, what attracted you to what they had to offer, what he had to offer, and what did you learn that you can really talk about now that is the highlight of your career?
I just want to correct something, Ron. I didn't really go to work for General Powell. I went to work for his organization, his charitable organization, which is called America's Promise. And what they do is they do charitable works for children all over America. And General and Mrs. Powell, who's very active with the organization, he wasn't as active because he has an incredibly busy schedule. He's in great demand as a speaker and for a whole variety of things. But Mrs. Powell was the chair of our board and very involved. But both of them very concerned about the welfare of children. I was hired really to jumpstart an initiative of theirs called Grad Nation, which aimed at getting more students to graduate from high school and less to drop out. The goal was to have a 90% graduation rate by the year 2020. And we're closing in on 2020 and getting there. I don't know if we're going to make the 90% graduation rate, but I worked all over the country with school systems that have major issues with dropout. And it was in the North, Midwest, through the South, the West Coast, all over. And it was fascinating, and I actually did learn a lot about academic achievement in different parts of the country. And I learned about, unfortunately, some really bad circumstances in which children were found, and realizing how lucky we are in Maryland that there are very high standards and that we take very good care of our kids in this state.
So, and that is a good follow-on to my question, which is, as you looked around the country and compared to what you knew in Maryland, what were some of the epiphanies? Did you find that a lot of the problems were the same, or are there different problems in other states?
Well, I can give you one example, which is what started this initiative. General Powell was speaking in the South, and somehow the conversation came around to the school. And somebody told him that the local high school had a 20% high school graduation rate. He was appalled and really upset by that, and that's part of the reason why he and the organization got involved in this initiative.
So not 20% dropout, 20%
Graduation rate.
Wow.
I know, that was a major epiphany. Also, we've gotten used in Maryland to housing our children appropriately. A lot of money is spent on school construction, and I think appropriately so, for a whole variety of reasons. But I think it gives a message to a student and also influences the community how your school looks. And also the treatment of children, you know, schools that have no air conditioning when it's 95 degrees out. And what I found in various parts of the country were that children were housed in very difficult circumstances. I also was really surprised at the level of education, the materials that are there for use. I saw many schools where kids hardly had any computers, maybe a lab. And so that was a tremendous, eye-opener for me to realize how lucky we are in the state of Maryland, but also kind of, reinforced my resolve to try to make a difference nationally, which is very ambitious. But I think I worked hard at it, and we did see some differences as a result of the work that we did. And by the way, it wasn't just education folks, it was also folks that work in the community, in areas with parents and community members to improve things. So it was a real team effort of people from different disciplines.
Excellent.
So at that time, did you work with your higher official in the country, Arnie Duncan? Did you ever do anything with Duncan? Or
Absolutely. Actually, one really nice perk to all of it was that I did go over to the White House fairly often, and I was very privileged to be invited to meetings that not necessarily Secretary Duncan, but some of his folks would hold, and I would get invited because they wanted America's Promise at the table. It was an important organization for a lot of education initiatives at the federal level. But he was a remarkable person. I had never seen a Secretary of Education quite like Arnie Duncan before. People used to refer to him as the rock star of education. He was ever present. He was everywhere, very down to earth, really cared about kids. He was an exceptional person, and I wish he could have had a slightly longer tenure. And this has nothing to do with politics. It just has to do with the person.
Interesting. So, knowing what you know today, what do you feel like is the biggest challenge in education? Is it the housing piece? Is it the parent involvement piece? What are your thoughts?
Well, there are always a lot, because wherever you have different communities with different levels of interest in education, and where you have lots of differences among kids, there's always going to be challenges. Public education is just, because it's public education. We educate all the students that come to us. But I would say, and this may surprise you to hear this, but I really think securing the safety of children, to me, is one of the top issues in public education today. I just distressed every time there's another report about a shooting in a school, mass murder. This just seems incredible to me. When I started teaching in the Middle Ages, I couldn't have imagined anything like that. And I think most people couldn't have imagined it. And just the issues all around securing our schools. It has to be somewhere between making them like a prison, but on the other hand, just totally open to anything that could occur. that's a major challenge, I think, for all of our schools in America, all the school systems. Obviously, I don't think the answer is to arm teachers. I think you're asking for a lot of trouble to even think about that notion. But I think that's a major issue now in public education, and how to solve that issue. We had pretty unsecure schools when I was here, and then we had a couple of incidents which actually the Herald Mail brought to our attention, and I will always thank them for that, that they had a big spread on the fact that their reporters could just get into the school and wander the school. If you remember that. I was appalled by it because they shouldn't be able to do that. And so following that, we put in key card systems, which, by the way, we really took it on the chin for that. Why were we wasting money? And then as time has gone on, people said, why didn't you do it sooner?
Right.
And there are various security things that I know went in place, and I'm sure there's even more now that I don't even know about.
Well, in your travels, you have you determined yet whether the larger school with less top-level staff is more effective, or do we stay with the neighborhood schools throughout the country that cost more money? What is there a difference? Have you seen a difference in the large school that could have far more than the neighborhood school?
Well, that's a really good question, and there's been a lot of research on that. There's a lot of research on size of school and impact on kids, and size of classroom and impact on kids. And just looking at size of a classroom, how many kids to a classroom, and this may sound kind of like a duh, all of the research has shown that an excellent teacher can teach 40 kids better than a mediocre teacher can teach 15.
Oh.
Very definitive research on that, and it's been around for quite a while now. So it really comes down to the quality of the teacher in that classroom. Now, if you had a really fantastic teacher teaching 15 kids or 20 kids, imagine what that teacher could do. And as we're moving into an era more now of personalized education, these are some of the goals in education now, really to individualize more, to personalize more. That becomes extremely important. But the research also on large schools is still, the jury is out. But I could name you some schools that are huge that have tremendous track records. And for example, New Trier High School outside of Chicago is one of the top high schools in the country. And it has like 3,500 kids. Look at Blair High School down in Montgomery County. Of course, they have magnet program there, but it's just a school of excellence, huge school.
Explain to people what magnet program is, because a lot of people really don't understand what the magnet program does.
Yeah,
and
good question.
It's in Montgomery Blair, I think you're talking about.
Yeah, good question. A magnet program, and you could have a whole school that's a magnet school, and what it means that there's a specialty or there's a very specific thing that they do in that school, whether it be the arts or whether it be nature, biology, or whether it's languages. It's a specialized learning that they have in that school. Now, you may have a school with a magnet program within the school. And we have those, you know, in Washington County, the International Baccalaureate at North High is a good example of that. So it's kind of almost with a school within a school, though those kids are integrated with the rest, or at least they used to be.
Is Barbara Ingram a magnet school?
It is a total magnet school. You go there specifically to learn about the arts, and it's not a school it's not a magnet program within a school. It's a total magnet school unto itself.
What made you work so hard to put Barbara Ingram together when there was adversity, to put it together? Could you realize that those kids were not finding their way in education, and all at once you can interview a kid on the street anywhere today and listen to that kid defend their school? I mean, they just defended to the hilt.
Absolutely.
What was the secret? What'd you know?
Well, it's not what I knew. I think it was basically the goal of providing opportunity to children. The best school systems in this country, all over the country, have programs that are available to kids. That's what I think makes a school system just top drawer. That's what I think makes a system a world-class public school system. It offers an array of opportunities for every kind of kid. So there should be a school for the kid who's very artsy and a little bit out of the norm and, very artistic and, the kid with purple hair and 10 earrings. And as there should be a school for someone who wants to become a doctor in the future and wants to really focus on sciences. And doing that in high school gives them an early start, and they can move into college and already have a lot of knowledge. It's about opportunity for every single kid and turning every kid on and motivating them, because when a kid can choose their own school, the kids at Barbara Ingham have chosen that school to go to. I've talked to them. I've known them over time now. And when you can choose your own school, my God, how motivating that is. And I think that unlocks a real joy in education for kids.
So we're going to pause right there, but we'll be back in 3 minutes with more with Dr. Elizabeth Morgan. Stay with us.